Coach Damon Stoudamire takes over at Georgia Tech as he is the 15th boss in Yellow Jackets history. Coach Stoudamire spent 5 seasons as the head coach at Pacific, where he was the WCC Coach of the Year in 2020 in leading the Tigers to a 23-10 mark. The last 2 years he spent as an assistant coach with the Boston Celtics. As we remember, they got to the finals in the NBA playoffs a couple of years ago. Now he's starring in Atlanta, Georgia, as the head coach of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Coach, welcome back.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here.
There you go. Tell us about the learning curve for coaches between college basketball and then moving to the NBA and then maybe moving from a coaching position in the NBA into a head coaching position in the college game.
Well, to me, it kind of all goes hand in hand. My second job that I had was I coached with the Memphis Grizzlies as well. So, I think that a lot of it has to do with relationships. The game is different. You can't get that. I could go over here and tell you how the game is different, but the game is totally. And I think this past time going up to the NBA and being up there and then coming back, it's weird. It's weird because a lot of people don't really understand it. But in the NBA, I think that it's more. I think they more think outside the box. I won't call it forward thinking. I just think that they just think more outside the box. And I think in college, it's changing a little bit, breaking the ice, so to speak. There's a couple teams playing the way NBA teams play, but the game is just played so different. And so the philosophies of basketball have changed. Everybody has a different philosophy, which is fine. Everybody has a different philosophy. There's a different way to skin the cat to get to the way you want to win. I think that's what it is now. It's more style of play. Everybody wants to win their way. And I think that, going back and forth, those are the things that I learned. Those were the differences between the games. I mean, it was but it's really enlightening. I had the experience to go and do both of them. And that internship to see it both ways, I think will bode well for me.
Sure. And we can't forget now, or we can't let the fans forget, you were the NBA Rookie of the Year in 1996 with the Toronto Raptors. You had great uniforms also, by the way. Hey, you averaged 19 a game, 9.3 assists. How does that honor take place when you have to, delete those thoughts from your game and soak up the match with whomever you're playing from game to game?
Now, you mean in terms of me coaching now?
Well, in terms of playing,
Okay.
you might have been on the map. Damon Stoudamire is going to be the NBA Rookie of the Year. Well, you hear all that, but at the end of the day, you got to go game by game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. You have to. The NBA is a grind. That honestly, probably the most disappointing thing that I tend to hear now. And hey, I get it. It doesn't bother me none. It's more disappointing. Like I said, is social media has allowed people to think making it to the NBA is easy, and it's really not that easy.
No.
It's not that easy at all. It's only 450 guys. There's a difference of, how you play, what to do, how to do it. It's not necessarily what meets the eye at times. And, game to game, player to player, there's different things that you have to do to prepare for each one. And each team, each player brought a different challenge for me, but I was ready. I mean, I was young. Truth be told, we weren't a great team, but the reality of it is that as an organization, they rallied around me to pour everything into me to make sure that I succeeded as a player individually, to get a franchise, a little bit of luster. And, those are the things that I cherish about those years in Toronto. I had great people around me. I had great mentors. I had great ownership. People that bled into me that allowed me to not only get that, get that award, but help catapult me as not only a basketball player, but as I moved on into coaching.
You split time between the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs in your last season. I was interested in knowing some things you learned from Coach Greg Popovich there, a Hall of Famer now, that you can use as a coach, ideas and maybe philosophies.
I wasn't. I don't know if I was there long enough to learn the intricacies of it and to learn different things. But what I did learn
Mm,
ahead of the game in terms of, I would say, like the load management, and then like from an analytical perspective,
mm,
in terms of, trying to do different things. And, we didn't really practice that much. We had a veteran team. We walked and we talked through a lot of things, and we watched a lot of film. So that leads me, basically what I just said is, man, we really paid attention to detail. I would say the biggest thing that I took from being in San Antonio and Pop was the attention to detail each and every day. That was the most important thing. We were really detailed oriented, down to the last bone, and that was every player, that was every coach. It was great coaches, great coaches, great future coaches. I mean, when I think about, and I know I would be missing people if if I if I if I said tried to say all the names, but just the guys that weren't head coaches and then general managers all at the time. You had Presti, you had JB James Borrega. He was actually the guy that used to put us through most of the scouts at that time. Then you had Brett Brown was there. Then
mm.
you then you had Bud Mike Budenholzer. I was there as a player. Ime was there as a player. Michael Finley's in the front office of the Dallas Mavericks. Man, I can go on and on and on. It was so many people, that was in there. And that's not to mention the best players, Hall of Famers, Tim, Tony and Mono, who were great leaders and who talked through a lot of things. That was another thing that I seen in San Antonio. That was a beautiful thing, is that, he allowed those guys to have a voice. He challenged them, and he expected a lot of them, but he allowed them to have a voice. If they seen something on the floor, they change it. They
Mhm.
were on the floor, and he allowed that. So, though, the attention to detail piece, though, so important, I think, for me, and that's one of the biggest things I took from there.
What ideals made you want to return to the college game after, the NBA career and then working for the last two seasons with the Celtics?
I didn't want to return to college. I think
Yeah,
opportunity just kind of presented itself. I probably would have stayed in the pros, being honest.
yeah. Mhm,
Um, I I hadn't been far enough removed from the college game to where I didn't know it. Um,
mhm,
but I kind of gave myself a 3-year trajectory uh, when I was at Pacific. And I think a lot of guys are scared to talk about this. I don't know, but I'm not really scared of that. I was tired. As a
yeah.
head coach, it's draining. And I was
Mhm,
at Pacific. It was, there were things that we lacked, but I took pride each and every day in trying to make that the best job it could be for me and my staff and my players. And the athletic department, they did a great job of trying to give me what they could, but it was just, quite frankly, some of the things we just didn't have. So it was an everyday fight and grind, the battle to try to make up for what we didn't have. And man, I was tired. And when I went to Boston, going there, that gave me a great outlet. It was all basketball. It was no more recruiting. It wasn't worrying about studying different things. So it allowed me to really give my life back. And I was able to take the last couple years, man, and just kind of refresh and recharge my battery. And I say that as if I wasn't in the middle of a lot of stuff going on with Boston. We had a great team, but it allowed me to grow, man. I think the best thing about Boston, I'll say this again, talking about San Antonio and being around the great people that I was with, You had so many great people within the organization. The basketball team speaks for itself. But within our coaching staff, myself, Will Hardy, Joe Mazzulla, Ime Udoka, Brad was upstairs. You had Mike Zarin. You just got you. I'm telling you, when you're around good people, good things happen. And there was a lot of critical thinking going on in the building. And I learned a lot from each and every one of.
What are the ideas in bringing Georgia Tech back into a position in the ACC where it's a challenger? They fostered a competitive team there, like Bobby Crimmins back in the day, but Coach Pastner had a tournament championship a couple of years ago.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for me is sounds cliche, but it's just want to create a culture of accountability. Again, that to me, that's attention to detail. That's how I became a good player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't skip steps. Got a chance to be a good team this year, and I think the biggest thing for me is you want to be able to have sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the coaching level, they've always had a sustainable program. They keep it up to date. They're inventing new ways to keep their mind and changing on the run.
Mm-hmm.
About how the game has changed. The game has changed. Recruiting has changed. A lot of things have changed, and you got to know how to tweak it. You got to know how to tweak things and change with it. But the biggest thing is just being sustainable and creating a culture of accountability, and really been big on the attention to detail piece, both on and off.
Georgia Tech had a tough offensive season last year. They only shot 42.3% from the floor. How do you build on that and change it? Does that have a lot of potential with the group you brought in?
Well, you know what? Truth of the matter is, I haven't really looked at last year's stats. I want to do, kind of how I want to do it. Um, I think as to don't mean nothing if you can't play free. I'm really big on making sure guys, you know, feel good about themselves, trying to build relationships with them, trying to get them in a comfort zone and have a comfort level to where they can be successful as a player, because a lot of times numbers lie from the standpoint of, yeah, they don't lie about the ball going in the basket and things of that nature, but they could lie because you never know what's going on in a young man's life at that particular time. So I think that for me, the biggest thing is trying to find a way to impact each one of these guys' lives so they don't have an internal struggle with trying to have success. Because if you have the internal struggle, you're never going to outwardly have the success.
Miles Kelly is the leading returning scorer from last season. He averaged 2.7 threes per game. He shot 38% from three.
Yeah, Miles is a good ball player. He's back, and he should have a great season. He should be one of the best players in this conference. And he would probably tell you this: it hasn't been easy, because I'm not the coach that jumps the guys that maybe not going to be accounted for as much as the other guys. I go at the top players. That's how I know it. That's how I was taught, and that's how I was coached. So I put a lot on Miles, and he knows that each and every day he comes in, I'm gonna challenge him. And it's only because when the games come, the game should be, in a sense, you know, easier than practice if you've been paying the price.
Mm-hmm. Last thing, Coach, you got 12 different players in the Georgia Tech transfer portal coming and going, but you pick up Kawasi Reeves from Florida. How does his game fit your vision as a key contributor on either end of the floor?
I think what Tracy is a guy that I look at that can shoot the three. Um, Love, and a great defender for me, running the floor, getting layups, dunks. He's an active energy guy. That's how I see him, helping us this season.
Coach Damon Stoudamire at Georgia Tech in the ACC down in Atlanta. Coach, it's a pleasure talking to you, and I hope I see you this season.
No question. Hey, you have a good one. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
All right.
Yeah. Bye now.
Good
Good
deal.
luck.
All right.
Good.